Hey, what's up, viewers? Patrick from Bob vs. Only back with another YouTube video. In this episode number 2 of Surrender Recon Bob verses of the day. And today's verse comes out of Psalm 50, verse 15. And it reads, "And call on me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you will honor me." And that's what that verse means. And let's get into it. It's time for the church recap. And starting with the book of John, Glenn preached this sermon yesterday. In the book of John, starting with chapter 3, this is verses 17 through 21, and it reads, "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but people loved darkness instead of light, because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light, and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what they have done has been done in the sight of God." Also in the book of John, in chapter 9, and this is the key chapter for this sermon, in chapter 9, verses 1 through 41, and this is where Jesus heals a man that was born blind. It reads, "As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, 'Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?' 'Neither this man nor his parents sinned,' said Jesus. 'But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work, while I am in the world. I am the light of the world.' After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. 'Go,' he told him, 'wash in the pool of Siloam.' This word means sent. So the man went and washed, and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, 'Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?' Some claimed that he was. Others said, 'No, he only looks like him.' But he himself insisted, 'I am the man.' 'How then were your eyes opened?' they asked. He replied, 'The man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see.' 'Where is this man?' they asked him. 'I don't know,' he said. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. 'He put mud on my eyes,' the man replied, 'and I washed, and now I see.' Some of the Pharisees said, 'This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath.' But others asked, 'How can a sinner perform such signs?' So they were divided. Then they turned again to the blind man. 'Where have you to say about him? It was your eyes he opened.' The man replied, 'He is a prophet.' They still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight. until they sent for the man's parents. "Is this your son?" they asked. "Is this the one you say was born blind? How is it that now he can see?" "We know he is our son," the parents answered, "and we know he was born blind, but now he can see now." "But how can he see now, or who opened his eyes?" "We don't know. Ask him. He is of age. He will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who already had decided that anyone who acknowledges that Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. That was why his parents said, "He is of age. Ask him." A second time, they summoned the man who had been blind. "Give glory to God by telling the truth," they said. "We know this man is a sinner." He replied, and this is the key point, "He is a sinner. Whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see." So, stopping there for a brief moment. So, one of the things that Glenn shared about this particular verse, and actually some that related to him, that related to the verse, he had experienced the one time where he was driving somewhere. It was dark out, and I didn't remember the whole story, but I guess he was somehow fearful or something. He couldn't look to the left, he couldn't look to the right, he couldn't look into the rear view mirror, because he basically was concerned that there might be demons in the back seat. And the Lord spoke to him and said, the Lord told him that he had one more chance. And he went to this one church, and it just so happened that the people that was a part of that church that he went to, they just happened to be praying for him, and the rest goes on. It was a really powerful story, and that's how it relates to verse 25 of chapter 9 of John. Continuing on, then they asked him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered, "I have told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" Then they hurled insults at him and said, "You are this fellow's disciple? We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from." The man answered, "Now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." To this they replied, "You were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us?" And they threw him out. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." Then the man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind." Some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, "What? Are we blind too?" Jesus said, "If you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. Also in the book of John, chapter 20, verse 20 and 31. And here is what reads: Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. And finally, 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verses 38 through 40, and it reads, "But if anyone ignores this, they will themselves be ignored. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, be eager to prophesy, and do not forbid speaking in tongues, but everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way." And that's all for the verse portion. And the verse to leave you with today is 2 Chronicles 15, verse 7, and it says, "But as for you, be strong and do not give up, for your work will be rewarded." And that's going to do for the video. Thanks for watching. And until next time again, viewers, in every way, God's way is always the best way.